Hello, everybody. It is news time from Michigan. And yesterday, the second show, I believe, is the highest one in the past year, I think. It was 417, I just checked, on the second show. So thanks for everybody for coming in on the second show last night. I'm glad that the like button is getting higher. Thanks for hitting the like button. Like what everyone says, I guess it helps the algorithm. I can pronounce the word, but yeah, it's over 40 on the likes. So, but keep hitting the like button for me. Appreciate it. Thanks. Everybody's starting to find my channel again. Today was a relaxed day since it was a holiday, and we get ready to watch the national championship tonight in basketball. So we got Ann first. Tim will say it, and KK should be coming in here. Lucy and Tim, is there a button on there how you can view this? Can you block people, or can is it just time out because Kay can't block people? And I changed her thing to edit editor, so I'm hoping somebody can block. I got to figure that out because I can't unblock. I don't think. So, do you okay today from going back to work, or were you off today, Lucy? Was it today a holiday for you? Oh, no matter what your name. Anybody in chat yet? I see names, but Daniel made it on time. Yep. Happy Monday and happy Martin Luther King Day today, everybody. So the first topic is going to be about the protest in that church last night, and talk about Don Lemon. They said was part of and should be arrested. So the first four videos I'm going to be playing on that. The first one's a minute, and then I got a second one. George got one from the church, so that's an important topic. So better get all that out.
'19, 2026, and I'm just wondering if Don Lemon is arrested yet. I see that little kid right over there. His daddy's holding him right there, upset and crying. Well, that's what Don Lemon and his comrades did when they bombarded in a church and called themselves protesting during active worship service yesterday. Don Lemon swears he didn't know what was going on. He just followed them to the church to do active journalism. Apparently, this is Don Lemon after the fact. Harry and coffee and donuts back to those paid agitators. See, if you come doing that nonsense in a church in the South, where I come from, we're all packing, and you'll probably leave in a body bag. Matter of fact, there's a 99.9% chance that's what's going to happen to you. Don Lemon, how dare you, Don Lemon, come up in a church, an active church service, and cause political chaos. Don Lemon, you're a real POS, buddy. Liberals are some of the most sick, deranged individuals I've ever seen in my entire life. People are sick.
Guy here, look, he's hugging his this guy here, look, he's hugging his kid. And you know, I've imagined it's uncomfortable and traumatic for the people here, but again, careful, it's very slippery right here. Yeah. It's uncomfortable and traumatic for the people here. But that's what really careful, please. Really slippery. Not kidding. That's what protesting is about. So,
that was a minute. I got 4 clips I'm playing about the big protest last night. The second one is bidding and I'll get you cash one.
Who's that?
Hi.
Army, I want to thank you for being on the program today, and I appreciate your commentary yesterday. It was, in fact, the first, I believe, member of the Trump administration to hop on and say this. The
21.
Civil Rights Division is investigating the potential violations of the FACE Act. These people are desecrating a house of worship and interfering with Christian worshipers. And then you tagged Pam Bondi. Can you give me an update on this post, Army?
Well, yes, actually, I posted that from an airplane, and Pam Bondi and my boss, had already been in touch about this incident, what we're going to do about it. And so I'm working hand in hand with her. We have sent federal prosecutors last night from my office in D.C. to Minnesota. They should be landing any moment now. We activated the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office as well. And this has the highest attention of the Attorney General and my Department of Justice team, because it is, as you said in your intro, this isn't actually a question of whether we're going to stand for it. We don't stand for it in this country. And not every case that we do at the DOJ gets the headlines, but we've already prosecuted numerous attacks on churches so far in the last 9 months since I took office under Pam Bondi's leadership. We are investigating multiple attacks on synagogues. It is evil to attack any house of worship in America. It is illegal. And what I saw yesterday made me ashamed, frankly, for the United States, that we have an Attorney General in Minnesota, Keith Ellison, a District Attorney, Mary Moriarty, a Mayor, Jacob Fry, and Tim Waltz, Tampon Tim, who absolutely refuse to enforce our state laws. Their own state laws prohibit this very conduct. Well, if they're not going to enforce their laws, we will enforce our federal laws, and we are already doing that. And so, as you know, and as people have said, the prior administration executed people under the FACE Act for peacefully praying outside abortion clinics where unborn children are being killed inside. Now, that's protected by federal law. That's up to Congress. However, that same law gives us the right at the Department of Justice to prosecute the same kind of conduct vis-a-vis any house of worship. And there's been a lot of talk of the First Amendment thrown around. The First Amendment includes the right to pray without interference. It includes the right of these people to not have so-called journalists and a mob of activists disrupt their sacred day of prayer. And so, as far as I can tell, these very foolish people have already, many of them self-identified online as to who they were. They posted who their accomplices were. Don Lemon has made numerous admissions online as to his participation here and his intention and his knowledge of what was going to happen inside that sacred place. And so we're gathering the facts, and there will be action here. I know people are frustrated, where are the arrests, et cetera. Let me explain that for you and your team, Benny, because state prosecutors could have arrested some of these people yesterday. They don't have some of the same hurdles that we do in the DOJ. When DOJ, we gather our facts, we go to a federal judge has to issue the search warrants. We all know what the federal judges are doing right now in Minnesota. We will pursue charges in this case. I see various crimes that have occurred. Exactly what they are, I'm not going to flag, but the FACE Act has been mentioned as one of the predicates there. In other cases, DOJ used the Klan Act conspiracy charges tacked on to the FACE Act in the case of protests outside abortion clinics to bring much longer sentences. So there are a number of tools available to us. Who funded this? What else? What other crimes? Was there a use of the wires or the mails in preparing for this event? Across state lines to do this. All of those are potential predicates for additional federal charges.
Armin, I've just pulled up the Klan Act because this is the first time that I've heard this mentioned. This is an act that was passed in 1871, correction there, to combat the Ku Klux Klan and protect African Americans' voting rights, especially the Enforcement Act, which is known as the Force Act. So here's some of the information on screen. Would you mind breaking down for us, because we have just read the FACE Act and how this is an affinity to the FACE Act, an obvious and egregious demonstrable violation of the FACE Act, because they were entering a place of worship, harassing and threatening. We just played a video of a man, a bearded man, who was threatening to attack the Christians that were worshiping there. So it seems like an obvious FACE Act violation. But the Klan Act here, it is on screen. First time I've heard it mentioned. Can you unpack this for us, Harmeet?
Yeah, the Klan Act is one of the most important federal civil rights statutes, and it goes back to the time when President Lincoln emancipated the slaves, and yet the southern states, Dixiecrats mainly, were refusing to give them equal rights. And in fact, that you had sheriffs and you had law enforcement harassing the newly freed slaves. So the Klan Act is a law that makes it illegal to terrorize citizens, to violate their civil rights, to get together and conspire to violate the civil rights. It is often used against law enforcement, but is now used against others as well. So whenever anyone conspires to violate the protected civil rights of American citizens, the Klan Act can be used to bring a conspiracy charge. We, in the federal law enforcement parlance, call this 241 and 242 civil and criminal conspiracies. And so what the Biden administration did is, if three grandmas got together to pray outside an abortion clinic for the souls of the people inside, and including unborn children, they would say, oh, that's not just a violation of the Klan Act, that's a conspiracy to violate the civil rights of women going in there to get abortions. And so we're going to add additional charges and punish that more and make it from a misdemeanor under the FACE Act to a felony under the Klan Act. And President Trump pardoned the pro-life protesters in those cases. I have recently defended successfully in the 11th Circuit a case called Oropesa, a case of Jane's Revenge, the pro-abortion protesters violently attacking crisis pregnancy centers in Florida. And we had the court uphold the Klan Act criminal enhancement to the FACE Act. So I know this is very deep in the weeds, but the point is, there are a number of things. The FACE Act is just the start. Like I said, you have material support for disruptive activities. You have conspiracy to violate civil rights. You have potentially the use of other instrumentalities to commit crimes. And so some of these folks who did this have self-identified. Don Lemon himself has come out and said He knew exactly what was going to happen inside that facility. He went into the facility, and then he began, quote unquote, committing journalism. And as if that's sort of a shield from being an embedded part of a criminal conspiracy. It isn't. And so, we're getting our ducks in a row. We're putting the facts together. And this is a very serious matter. Come next Sunday, nobody should think in the United States that they're going to be able to get away with this. Everyone in the protest community needs to know that the fullest force of the federal government is going to come down and prevent this from happening and put people away for a long, long time.
Happy Martin Luther King Day, everybody.
Praise God. I mean, that's so wonderful to hear. I was thinking through and deconstructing this, Harmeet, and thinking, well, wait a second, what would the left do if Alex Jones stormed a mosque and then started interviewing the imam up at the altar, right, or at the front of the mosque, right, while everyone screamed at Muslims trying to pray? Of course, it would be the single biggest protest moment and offense, and people would lose their minds. The entire country would burn. There'd be protests in every city in America. It'd be one of the biggest stories in the world. Why this is allowed to happen to Christians and why it is fomented and why it is giggled at. I'm so thankful for this administration for actually finally drawing the line, because of course you don't want to see this happen at a synagogue. And no, it's not an act of journalism if I kick in the door of a synagogue and run up to the rabbi and start live streaming them as people scream at at Jewish people trying to pray. No, that's not an act of journalism.
It's a desecration. And
Benny, terrorism. Yes.
One of the issues here is the people on the left that we're talking about, they're not familiar with what goes on inside a house of worship. They've a lot of them are godless people, obviously, because otherwise, you're right. No matter what house of worship this happens at, this is illegal in America. The FACE Act is non-denominational. We are investigating FACE Act violations against synagogues. And, we have the same problem. There are godless people in this country who are terrorizing people where they are most vulnerable. That is the very last place this should happen in America. It should happen nowhere, of course. No one should feel afraid, but we won't tolerate it. The Attorney General feels deeply about this. We both spoke to the pastor last night who was so calm in the face of a threatening mob invading his sanctuary. He acted very, very bravely and appropriately, and we have given them some guidance on how to proceed here. But look, this will not be allowed to happen anywhere in America, and it's shameful.
So wondrous! It's so incredible to hear. So you and Pam Bondi called the pastor. You spoke with the pastor last night. Everyone's praising this pastor for such his calm and peaceful demeanor and keeping his head here.
Videos about
he's actually great, and it turns out he had a North Carolina accent, and I grew up in the same town as his wife. So it's a small world, and he's a great leader of his congregation. But I'm sure every pastor in America is worried: is this crazy lunatic mob, well funded by the left, going to come into my church? They better not. We are on it, and we are putting all the resources possible into it.
Well, that's exactly right. I just wanted to set up a series of events for you, and I'm sure that you've already investigated this, because Don Lemon is speaking out directly to you and saying that he had nothing to do with it, except for, we can see that Don Lemon was delivering coffee to the protesters beforehand. In Don Lemon's own live, he said that he knows that the protest is about to go and pull up to certain locations, and he can't tell us where they're going to go. But the organizer knew because she posted on Facebook right here. Here's her Facebook post explaining that they were going to attack a church that day. She even tags Don Lemon in this. Then Don Lemon gives the organizer, who's some famous BLM organizer from the George Floyd era, he gives her a kiss live on camera while Don Lemon is sort of leading the charge here into the church.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
so
she's a lawyer too.
Oh, really? So it defies explanation, Harmeet, that they didn't know that he's an innocent party, and that he's just journalisming. Really quickly, if you don't mind, he had a message to you, and I'd like to play it here. He got your name wrong, but it's just an act of journalism. Here we go.
The MAGA administration and the fake news MAGAs are losing their mind over something that's not even true. So let me just make it clear, because it's a assistant attorney general, I don't know, what's her name? Something Hammett. Dylan or whatever.
So thank you for joining the show, Hammond.
I had no affiliation to that organization. I didn't even know they were going to this church until we followed them there. We were there chronicling protests. Once the protest started in the church, we did an act of journalism, which was report on it and talk to the people who were involved, which included the pastor, members of the church, and members of the organization. That's it. It's called journalism.
Okay.
They set me up and schemed to ruin my life.
Just apologize for what you did. Just apologize.
No, Tony, no. The whole world is going to know the truth.
His damn hair is what he is.
I'm just getting started.
Dead Man's Wire, rated R. FanDuel Casino's exclusive game Huff and Puff Money Mansion is packed with thrills, like mega hats bringing mega mayhem, and maybe even a visit from you-know-who. New players get 500 bonus spins, plus up to $1,000 back in casino bonus.
Your response to Don Lemon.
Well, look, I mean, we have a presumption of innocence in this country, so I want to preserve my ethical duties here. But let me just say that, he's a journalist. He was a journalist. I don't know what he is now, but journalism is not a badge or a shield that protects you from criminal consequences when you are part of a crime. And I think the videos show how close he was to these folks. I think further evidence will show more information about that, but he clearly knew, and he stated before going into the facility, it's on his own video, what was going to happen there. What was going to happen was a violation of federal law, federal criminal law. And I don't know what to say. I mean, the FACE Act has been out there for more than 30 years, and there were lawyers involved in this so-called protest, and their purpose was to terrorize people of faith in a house of worship. They were targeting a different pastor, not the one seen on camera, who they got information was a ICE supervisor. None of that matters. It's off limits to go into a house of worship to do your little protest. Protests can occur on public property. Protests can occur outside, on a sidewalk, certain sidewalks, not all sidewalks. And this is like basic what you learn in the first year of law school. There's a time, place, and manner restrictions on the First Amendment right of protest, and they were violated here in this case. No question about it. The only question is who was involved, how many were involved, and how many charges are going to be brought here. Those are the questions.
It's absolutely incredible to hear that. Could you talk us through the last time that this argument was used, which was January 6th? Because I tend to recall, and I know many of them, people who were there on January 6th, and they were filming, right? And they said,
right.
Sorry, my phone was plugged in. They were saying, I was filming, and so therefore I'm a journalist, and I get protection from this act that the federal government said was criminal. And, and they didn't get any protection. Steve Baker is one that's pretty famous at the Blaze. But there were many others. And so that certainly did not shield these journalists on January 6th breaking in the U.S. Capitol, right?
Yeah, you're correct. Look, I've been practicing First Amendment law for over 30 years. And so I have represented many journalists, mostly conservative, not all conservative. And if someone were to come to me and ask me, hey, is it okay if I embed with a gang of criminals about to commit a crime and videotape it? I would say that would be a poor idea. Do not do that. Let me call my criminal defense attorney friend and let's get you retained. If you think you're going to do something crazy like that, you need to get your bail money ready. And I would advise against it. That would be my advice neutrally, just theoretically. Okay. Now, the leader of this, one of the organizers there who got the kiss from Don Lemon is a lawyer. She's a lawyer for BLM. She's a lawyer for the NAACP, or she has been historically, I think, leader of a chapter there of the NAACP. And a lawyer should know better because this law is well known. But forget the law. A human being should know better than to take their protest into an altar in front of a place where people are coming to worship. It is literally supposed to be a sanctuary from all kinds of distress and fear and a place to get comfort and solace. And this is just godless behavior to take that into a house of worship. It is, I don't know what we've come to here in this country that people are doing this willingly, but it won't happen again with impunity. It won't happen in this case with impunity. And it's just not going to happen in America. We won't tolerate it.
I know that you cannot comment on this, but just the richness of Don Lemon potentially being charged by the Klan under the Klan Act is just going to be really something else. I wanted to give you an opportunity, since you've since you're approaching this with such strength, to speak to this photo that's now gone viral, this young child who's being comforted by his father, this young Christian child, and he's what looks like either weeping or crying or terrified. This is a image from the live feed where the man was going row by row. This bearded man was going row by row, screaming at and threatening the Christians, calling them fake Christians inside of their house of worship, and physically threatening harm. You can see the child here weeping in his father's arms. And then you can also see Don Lemon afterwards saying the purpose of this protest was to make these children uncomfortable. He said it live on his stream. I'd like to, perhaps you could give a message to these children in that church who experienced this. What is the message from the DOJ, Harmeet?
The message from the DOJ is that the Attorney General of the United States has a zero tolerance policy for this. What we told the pastor of that congregation is we are very sorry that they had to go through that terrorizing incident, and that we are sending reinforcements from DC to make sure that the crimes that occurred yesterday are fully prosecuted. And, you know, there was a racial element to what was said as well. The man you're referring to, who I believe is a vet, very disturbed looking man. He had recently just been arrested and catch and released by Minnesota law enforcement officials 2 days earlier. I think it was on Friday. And that's why he was free to terrorize this child and his parents and this family. Shameful. But he's shouting about them being white and privileged. And so those are additional things that we're looking at. Is there a racial element to this church being targeted? Because, you know, that's also illegal in America, committing crimes on the basis of the race of the victims. And so I just commend this congregation. They are obviously godly people who were calm in the face of this. I mean, I see people calmly talking with Don Lemon, you know, sticking his little goofy mic into their face. And that's not what they came to church for. They prepared their minds. They came to receive wisdom and seek the comfort of their colleagues and hear a teaching from the pastor. And instead, this is what they got. Well, the lesson learned here is going to be the lesson learned by these so-called protesters, that their right to protest ends outside the church. It does not extend inside the church. If they trespassed in a better run city and state, they would already have been arrested under state law, which can happen much more quickly than I can do, for violation of Minnesota's version of the FACE Act. It's also illegal to do this in Minnesota, and for trespass. I don't think anything's going to happen. I haven't heard a word from Keith Ellison or from Mary Moriarty, the district attorney in Hennepin County, where this happened, about these violations. I haven't heard a word from Tim Waltz about this. I haven't heard a word from the mayor of Minneapolis about this. That's a failure of leadership there, but thank goodness we have a strong and dedicated DOJ and Attorney General Pam Bondi, who will make sure that we explore every avenue to bring the most charges appropriate to do justice in this case.
We cannot emphasize enough how thankful we are with this leadership team at the DOJ. And here's why. You have to make examples. There has to be red lines. There has to be lines in the sand. There has to be hills to die on. And you do not want this happening to your church. Think about your church. Think about what's happened in churches around America, but including in Minneapolis, where 2 young children died after a transgender man shot the church up. 17 different bullets hit children while they were praying, not too far away from this location. The church is under attack. Christian schools are getting shot up and attacked. This is something that is growing. The left is attacking churches. It's godless. It's demonic. It has to end. And people need to be made examples of. And this is a perfect opportunity to do that at scale. And we're praying for you, Harmeet, and we're praying for the entire DOJ, and we're thankful for you standing up. This should not happen to any house of worship, Christian or otherwise. And so my Christian children who go to church every week are thankful for you. Thank you, Harmeet.
Thanks for having us.
Here we go. Follow Harmeet Dillon right here. Here is her DOJ account.
Okay, that's the first video. Like I said, I got one more long one. That's Cash. And then we got George. And then after that, I'll do the short clips. The short clips. This is the topic right now.
them and not abiding by the Constitution.
What are you talking about?
When you start doing all
18
of
minutes
that,
on the
people get upset and angry. And if you remember what the civil rights movement
This
was
is a
about,
church.
the civil rights
This
movement
has
was
nothing to
about
do with ICE.
these very kinds of protests. And for some reason,
This is
in
disgusting.
our modern era, people think that in order to have protests, you got to be, cordoned off to a certain
But why are they
area.
attacking a church?
And Department of Justice officials say they are now investigating a group of anti-ICE protesters after they interrupted a church service in St. Paul. The group alleging that one of the pastors is the acting ICE field director there. ICE posting on X today, quote, agitators aren't just targeting our officers.
Yes.
Now they're targeting churches too. They're going from hotel to hotel, church to church, hunting for federal law enforcement who are risking their lives to protect America. This week, now calling on local leaders and local law enforcement officials to do more.
Straight up wrong.
What should be happening, instead of going after ICE officers, what should be happening is local leaders should be sending law enforcement out to stop the protesters from assaulting ICE officers.
But as you're about to see, this is part of a new movement by the Party of Political Violence to find anybody who has not already sided with the mob and cancel them. Look at this. Why are they doing this in a church? Because they think the people in the church voted for Trump. That's what. This is why they're here. Look at this. This is the first time these people have ever been to a church. Where are you? Where are you? And this is what they did there. Terrible. Why are you not at Wimbledon? They're attacking the pastor. For the humanity, standing for our people. Where are you? You drink your coffee. You got your jewelry. You have your nice clothes. But what do you do? What
Now
do you do to
this
stand
is
for your
so wrong.
Somali and Latino communities?
What is he
talking about? So according to these rioters, this mob, if you do anything other than fight the federal government, you're the problem. You see what's happening? And this is really happening. Look, they're chasing after people just for no reason. But they just went after this guy. This is America now. This is America now. If you don't look like a rioter, if you're not one of them, they are going to punish you for it, even if you're just an innocent person. This is an insurrection. This is a takeover of our country. But they chased this guy down and knocked him over.
I was with him earlier. Why you get ran out earlier? I don't know. It was one of us. I'm with them.
This guy might actually be one of the rioters. Take a good look at him and guess what he did wrong. Oh, look at this. Look, federal agents show up now. Get rid of it. There's no police. So random federal agents on their way to enforce the law had to show up and save this guy's life because he was going to get attacked, whether he's part of the mob or not. Oh my goodness. This is the most disgusting thing I've ever seen happening to this country. There's no cops anywhere. All rioters. This is how you take over a country and destroy it. You do it like this with help from the local government that doesn't care a thing about our laws, doesn't care a thing about religious freedom, only cares about maintaining itself and its own power. Look at this guy. This guy is getting mobbed by a mob that just for wearing an American flag and a freedom logo on his sweatshirt. Look, they're attacking him. They're attacking him. Look at all the press. The press are complicit in this, man. They're not helping. No one's trying to save this guy. Look, they're making him take off his sweatshirt in below zero temperatures because they don't like what it says. They don't even know who this guy is. They just see an American flag and they go nuts. But meanwhile, guess who it is that's out there trying to promote love and peace in Minnesota?
Hey everyone, we're at Carmel Mall. I want to tell everyone, don't allow the hate to make you not live your daily lives.
What if you want to go to church, Representative
Carmel
Omar?
Mall, do everything that you would normally do, and let's not be intimidated.
Yeah, like go to church. Let's not be intimidated. What could go wrong?
All these comfortable white people who are living lavish, comfortable lives while children are dragged
This guy
into
is terrible,
concentration
man.
camps. You're living real life, nice lives with your lattes.
You know what? They're probably all praying for him right now. They're not attacking him.
You come
This
here
is
to a
what
man
peace
wearing
looks
a
like.
suit. Is a preacher? Did Jesus wear a suit? Did Jesus profit off the word?
These screaming radicals say that they're peaceful, but they are literally experiencing peace right now in this church as they attack Christians.
We're here today in beautiful, peaceful St. Paul, a
Peaceful.
place that we care for our neighbors.
Hang on a second, you guys. And this is a massive rip through are abandoning a commercial plant in Virginia, spread it out into nearby wooded area Thursday. I'll keep an eye out and see if I get any more updates.
That's just the right side of history. Please keep thinking of Minnesota.
This is what these people are doing. They're saying that anyone who doesn't agree with mob-sponsored violence and endless fraud is some sort of problem in America, and that they're the problem. Meanwhile, the hatred is spilling out of these people, going into churches where people are peacefully worshiping the God of the Bible. But there's something else going on here. Recently, Governor Walz came out and he did his best to try and tell people in Minnesota that they should stand up for their rights and never give up and know that the country supports them, while at the same time not taking things so far that the Insurrection Act comes down. But the mobs, as you're about to see, aren't listening.
We did hear that the Department of Justice is now investigating Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and Mayor Jacob Fry. We spoke with some of the protesters here earlier who say that their state officials actually aren't doing enough.
Wow, listen to this.
He's going to do what he's going to do regardless. And like, there was a part of me that wasn't going to come out today because I was going to listen to our governor. But the governor and Mayor Jacob Fry have proven that like they're not for the people.
Wow.
And like, I can't just sit at home.
So that's how mob rule works. These sanctuary politicians, Ilhan Omar, Tim Walz, and the mayor of Minneapolis, what have they done? This whole time, they've aligned themselves with the mob, and they've done everything they can to push the mob forward, to rally the troops and to get them to go out there. And the president says this is part of a scheme to cover up corruption in Minnesota. But now that they're saying, hey, guys, maybe we want to tone it down just a little bit, just so maybe we can win the midterm elections, the mobs have stopped listening.
Earlier, before we saw these sheriff officers come on scene, we saw at least 10 people arrested by federal officers. They came out and deployed pepper spray. We saw some of the volunteer medics actually helping those people who had been sprayed in the face as well. But earlier, we did see this scene kind of play out between officers and protesters. And then earlier in downtown Minneapolis, outside of City Hall, we saw an anti-immigration protest as well as an anti-Minnesota fraud protest. The guy who was leading that was arrested during the January 6th insurrection for attacking a police officer.
Look, they're attacking the counter-protesters.
By President Trump. That was met by hundreds of people out supporting the immigrant community and trying.
Yeah, so you're allowed to peacefully protest and make your voice heard, as long as your goal is to not be peaceful at all and is to attack the federal government. If you show up in support of having laws in our country, or if you want to go to a church, you're the enemy.
To get those people out of the area.
This is so crazy, man.
With at least one person from the suburbs of Minneapolis who says that all of this chaos could be deterred if some of these protesters would let these ICE and Border Patrol officers do their job.
This is so
Take a listen.
man.
I think everything would be done by now if they just leave everybody alone. Let ICE do their job. If they're illegally detained and they're a resident, they're here supposed to be here, prove it. Then you get released.
Right.
Like, I know it's an inconvenience. I would be pissed off too, but let them just do their job.
Wow. So even some of the people who probably voted for Governor Walz and vote for representatives like Ilhan Omar are starting to realize that mob rule might not be as great as these sanctuary leaders have propped it up to be, especially now that it's out of control.
Now, we also know that just yesterday, a federal judge issued a temporary restraining order blocking federal agents from using tear gas or pepper spray against peaceful protesters.
What a useless order.
Observing the operations, Natasha, but I do want to take you back over
here.
They've
never done that.
You can see that there are some supplies set up, water, food, and also hand warmers for some of the people that are out here.
Who's funding
really
this?
similar situation
Who
to what
paid
we've
for all
seen in
that?
other cities where there's been these immigration protests outside of ICE facilities, and essentially these protesters set.
Okay, look at this guy right here. He's got goggles. He's in full black bloc, right? He's got 3 phones right here. He's over in the press pen, over by a whole horde of supplies. Who's paying for all of this? These are the same sanctuary, bought and paid for, hired rioters we've seen attacking law enforcement. That explains why they're out here in freezing cold temperatures. Normal people don't want this. The only people who do want this are people like Don Lemon, who used to be over at CNN and is now out there storming churches, trying to go viral on the internet for all the wrong reasons. But as you're about to see, he did just go viral with the Justice Department.
MAGA administration and the fake news MAGAs are losing their mind over something that's not even true.
He's in trouble now for going into that church. He's in a lot of trouble.
Assistant Attorney General, I don't know.
He's defending himself right now.
Hammett.
He's a journalist, doesn't even know who the assistant AG is.
I had no affiliation to that organization.
Oh, you
I didn't even know they were going to this church until we followed them there. We were there chronicling protests. Once the protest started,
that didn't work for the January 6th people. I didn't know. Didn't work for them.
Report on it and talk to the people who were involved, which included the pastor, members
Why
of
should
the
it work
church,
for
and
him?
members of the organization. That's it.
Guy
It's
got
called journalism.
Oh, so it's journalism now. When you do something wrong, it's called journalism. That's the excuse. Well, that doesn't work in America. We have laws against this kind of thing. Look at this quote right here. A house of worship is not a public forum for your protest. It is a space protected from exactly such acts by federal, criminal, and civil laws. Nor does the First Amendment protect journalism, which is actually disrupting a prayer service, said Harmeet Dillon, the Justice Department's assistant AG. You are on notice, she wrote. Oh, so now Mr. Don Lemon is getting investigated. Here he is in the church, spouting whatever it was he was spouting, standing right next to people who are there to try and destroy it and tear it apart. Got in the face of the pastor.
So Don Lemon goes into a church, okay, and he sees this pastor. This pastor is there minding his own business, doing his thing, and all of a sudden, everybody sees this clip going viral, okay? And the clip is of Don Lemon with this pastor, and the pastor's like, what are you doing? Like, let us do our thing. Just watch this clip to kind of get an idea what's going on here. Go ahead, Rob.
What do you think of this? I mean, this is unacceptable. It's shameful. It's shameful to interrupt a public gathering of Christians in worship.
This is shameful.
But I have to take care of my flock.
Okay, but listen, we live in there's a constitution in the First Amendment to
which he
freedom of
doesn't
speech and freedom
understand.
to assemble and protest.
We're here to worship. We're here to worship
Amen.
Jesus because that's the hope of these cities. That's the hope of the world is Jesus Christ.
I want to be very respectful. Please don't push me, though.
We're here to worship Jesus. That's why we're here. Okay, that's why we're here. That's what we're about.
Don't you think Jesus would be understanding and
we're about
love these folks?
We're about spreading the love of Jesus.
But did you try to talk to them as a
No
Christian?
one is willing to talk.
So he's asking the pastor why he won't talk to the mob that charged in the door of the church and is walking around trying to intimidate people and scream at people. These people are not willing to talk. Don Lemon is here trying to make it look like this pastor who's in church is part of the problem when this church was attacked by people who are the problem.
My family, so I asked that you actually would also leave this building.
You don't want us to chronicle what happened?
Unless you're here to worship.
I'm always worship. I'm a Christian.
Oh yeah, the left. They're always a Christian. Thank you very much. They always love Jesus when it's time to attack people.
This is what? This is at a church, I believe, in Minneapolis, right?
Yes, it's in St. Paul. From what I found, the church is in St. Paul. The pastor that is at the church also works for the local ICE organization, and that is why the protesters showed up to protest his church service. But apparently what they violated was called the FACE Act, which prohibits you stopping people in a house of worship, and that's punishable by up to 10 years in prison and a $250,000 fine.
That's why Don Lemon's upset.
Well, okay. I know from time to time I speak about evil on this podcast, and I want people to know I'm not doing it out of repetitiveness. I'm not doing it because I have a lack of content. I just want to show people over and over what we're dealing with. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12, it talks about not flesh and blood, but about evil people, okay? I honestly think Minnesota is cursed. In 2024, Rob has a video. Rob,
it's cursed by the curse of sin. That's what we're looking at here. We've got people who think that what they're doing is good and that good is actually evil.
Instead of going after ICE officers, what should be happening is local leaders should be sending law enforcement out to stop the protesters.
And they should be protecting all their residents,
doing nothing
not just the mobs.
job.
You wouldn't need the Insurrection Act if state and local officers were doing their job and maintaining peace.
Minneapolis Mayor Fry, despite being under investigation by the Department of Justice, doubling down, calling federal immigration officers' presence in the city an invasion.
That's not helping.
We have about 600 police officers in total in Minneapolis, and there's somewhere in the range of 3,000 ICE agents and border control. They're indiscriminately taking people off the street.
No, they're not.
DHS Secretary Kristi Noem has floated the idea of Minneapolis officials creating safe zones where protesters can stay and peacefully protest, similar to what we've seen in Illinois outside of the ICE facility in Chicago there.
The mobs don't want a safe zone. This is their sanctuary city. The whole place is a safe zone for them. And these leaders, they are in a really tough spot right now because they have brought these mobs to the point of no return, where they're now going into houses of worship and going after people who are peaceful, the opposite of what a peaceful protest is supposed to be about. And if they go out and they say, hey, listen, you guys, we want you to stand up to the federal government. We're being invaded. This is terrible. We've got this tyrant in the White House who's trying to take our place over. But to stop him, what I need you to do is you need you to stay in this little designated protest zone. And if you leave that zone, I'm going to have my police arrest you. They can't do that. The mobs now totally run this place. And these leaders, they know it. That's why they're not trying to stop this. I think the president may have to put his foot down on this because it doesn't look like the leaders here are going to be able to do it without losing the support of the radicals they've been cultivating.
Troops getting ready to deploy to Minnesota as Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Fry cries foul, asking me recently if it's all about blue state bias. Watch.
I would just ask you, why is the largest scale immigration enforcement action taking place where we don't even have that many undocumented immigrants? Why
How
would
come
it
they
not
keep
take place
finding
in
people?
Texas or Florida or Utah, where you do actually have those large numbers of undocumented immigrants? The truth is, it's not about murder or crime. It's not.
You mentioned Texas and Florida. You just had a surge in Louisiana, and you didn't see any of the commotion that you are seeing now in your city because
Isn't that interesting?
all of those states fully cooperate with ICE detainers.
Right.
And the proof is in
You
the
didn't see
numbers. Since
commotion.
April, Florida has arrested more than 10,000 illegal aliens compared to Minnesota, where nearly 500 have been released since President Trump took office. Florida GOP Congressman and gubernatorial candidate
Can't make this
Byron
up, man.
Donalds joins us now. Congressman, thank you for taking time. Your reaction to Jacob Fry, mayor of Minneapolis, basically saying that this is blue state bias.
Yeah, he has to say that because his mobs are in charge
Jacob
now.
Fry is a fool. Everybody knows he's a fool. He's a democratic socialist. He does not want to uphold the Constitution. He does not want to uphold the rule of law. You want to compare Florida and Minneapolis? Governor Ron DeSantis, by the way, the best governor in the country.
You would never have this in Florida. Why? Because the local police would go there and arrest all these people. These people are only on the streets in Minneapolis because their leaders told them to take to the streets. Their leaders told them they were being invaded. Their leaders told them, hey, we're not going to have the local police come after you and do anything. We don't have designated protest zones. You can do whatever you want, and we're not going to stop you because we feel as angry about this as you do. That's why they're on the streets. They are literally being told that good is evil and evil, which is what they're doing, is good. That's what we're looking at here. That's what I think anyways. What do you think? I'll see you in the next video.
Okay, so I guess 3 videos is enough. I had a 1-minute one. I think we covered pretty much everything from yesterday. So Kay, I found that name. I guess he's on TikTok, not YouTube. So I got a couple of his videos from the other day. And I got Steve Bannon update. Something happened to Tina Peters today.
Coming out, the lead lawyer for Tina Peters joins us. There's all types of reports coming out, tweets coming out. Is Tina Peters been assaulted in prison, and was she charged with a felony for getting assaulted, sir? Can you clear it up for us?
Yeah. Normally I like to greet you with a nice smile, but it's kind of hard to smile right now. She basically went into a closet where it's like a water closet where she had to fill a container with some water. And a 20-year-old inmate came in behind her and started to attack her from behind. She pushed this person out of the way and was defending herself. The part where she was defending herself was seen. So they're basically charging her. They put her in the hole for an undetermined amount of time. It's not like they're polite and kind and say you have to be here for 3 days or 1 day or whatever. So we don't know how long she's going to be there. Last time they put her in there, they put her in for 15 days, supposedly for her own safety. And then they returned her to a cell. So there was no, it kind of proved that it was just nonsense and they didn't need to put her in there. But this is really alarming. Okay, because what's going on there now, we've got the governor finally agreeing that the sentence that Tina Peters received was harsh. It was harsh. It was completely unreasonable. And now we have 3 judges of the Court of Appeals looking like they very much agree with that issue, that the sentence is not even a legal sentence. And so they're on the verge of reversing some of these charges and reversing or some of the convictions and some of the charges and the sentencing. At the same time, we've got Judge Polis finally saying that it's too harsh. And then we've got the real criminals. We've got Weiser and Griswold, Jana Griswold, who, and I say she's a criminal. They admit that they did what they did. They admit that she was responsible for going into 62 counties. And going into 62 counties and basically deleting the information which is contrary to federal law. You could get a year for each one of those. So Jenna Griswold is truly a criminal, and what she's doing is she's putting all of the emphasis on Tina Peters for basically saving the evidence. And now, so we've got a little bit of a divergence between Jenna Griswold and Weiser, who are basically saying keep her in prison. The real criminals saying keep the non-criminal in prison, while Governor Polis is saying, hey, I'm the governor. You want to make these decisions, you run for governor.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Peter,
meanwhile, so
Peter,
what's
just
going
hang on
on?
a second.
Then all of a sudden somebody attacks her
Peter,
in prison. Now, I don't have any evidence.
Hang on. We're going to get to take a short break. Peter.
Okay, that's all he said there. Sad about Tina. Okay, our favorite 2 videos are coming up with our favorite senator. I'm
back, are you?
I am in favor of giving law enforcement that power and respecting constitutional limits.
I don't believe you, Professor. Okay? You're not talking to Bambi's baby brother here. Okay? I've read some of your stuff. I think you'd be more intellectually honest if you just come out and say, I'm on the side of the bad guys here. I think we shouldn't give state and local law enforcement the authority to fight back. You're trying to make it as hard as possible, aren't you?
We'll have to disagree on that point, Senator.
Nah. You ever heard the expression, watch what they do, not what they say? I've watched what you've done. I know what you believe.
Look,
Let's be brutally honest about what we just witnessed in that committee room. It wasn't a debate. It was a public dismantling. Senator John Kennedy didn't just question Georgetown law professor Laura Donahue today. He exposed the staggering, dangerous gap between ivory tower theory and the real-world duty to protect this country. This was a masterclass in why the left's soft-on-security ideology collapses under the slightest pressure. And collapse it did.
In the ports of entry, but that's not your experience, is it?
No, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Kennedy?
The bad guys are using drones. Does anybody disagree with that? Okay. And the federal government has the authority to fight back, does it not? But state, nobody disagrees with that statement? Sure, Professor.
I would say within limits, yes. Within constitutional limits.
Okay. Do any of you disagree with giving state and local law enforcement the authority to fight back?
Again, within constitutional limits.
Okay. Tell me what your constitutional concerns are, Professor.
So I have three primary concerns. The first has to do with the Fourth Amendment and the conditions under which a warrant is required and a general warrant is forbidden by the Fourth Amendment. So in this particular case, it's important.
Professor, before you give me one of your lectures, are you saying that we should require state and local law enforcement to get a warrant before they fight back?
It depends on the condition. So in an exigent circumstance or something along
I'm
the border.
aware of the exceptions to the warrant requirement. But you, generally speaking, you want to require them to get a warrant.
Only for the search of a device or the seizure of property. There are also due process implications of that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. You started to mention another one of your objections.
First Amendment.
First Amendment. Okay. Any others?
Yeah, I also have a state rights, a 10th Amendment concern here, which is that states own the airspace adjacent to the land within their state that's not federally owned. And the current federal provisions don't recognize state sovereignty in that way.
So you want to give state and local law enforcement the authority to fight back, but you want to list a whole lot of conditions. Is that a fair assessment?
Not a whole lot, but some. There needs to be a nexus to the facility. It can't be any drone anywhere in America if you're concerned about a particular facility, but right now it's too broad. There have to be acknowledgements of First Amendment concerns. So for instance, limiting the covered facilities to the experience and logic test with which the courts use for right of public access, or prohibiting media bans across the board, or setting a time limit before and after special events so they don't extend extensively. This is what a number of state measures already do. And I'd like to see that at a federal level and apply to bring this within the constitutional
Sounds
limits.
like a lot of conditions to me.
No, not very many. As long as there's probable cause and the conditions are met, then absolutely you can.
Have you ever heard of a legislative practice called loving a bill to death?
Yes.
Okay. And that's when you take a bill and somebody says, I'm really for this bill. But then they add so many amendments and they screw it up so badly that the bill either becomes ineffective or doesn't pass. Is that a pretty accurate description?
Of the term?
Yeah.
Yes.
You're trying to love this to death, aren't you?
I disagree.
You're not really for giving law enforcement the power to fight back, are you?
I am in favor of giving law enforcement that power and respecting constitutional limits.
I don't believe you, Professor. Okay. You're not talking to Bambi's baby brother here.
Yep.
Okay. I've read some of your stuff. I think you'd be more intellectually honest if you just come out and say, I'm on the side of the bad guys here. I think we shouldn't give state and local law enforcement the authority to fight back. You're trying to make it as hard as possible, aren't you?
We'll have to disagree on that point, Senator.
Nah. You know, you ever heard the expression, watch what they do, not what they say? I've watched what you've done. I know what you believe.
3 minutes. Get a good one here, huh, you guys?
Or you're on the FISA court?
I'm not on the court. No, I'm an amicus for the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court and the Court of Review.
Okay. Were you there when you guys issued all those bad warrants against Trump's people?
I can't discuss my work on the court,
Oh,
unfortunately.
it's top secret, right? I'd be on, you'd have to put me on the American people on double secret probation if you told them the truth, wouldn't you?
No. I can't discuss my matters that I've handled before the court. I can discuss the public ones where I've dealt with First Amendment concerns and the right to petition. I did an extensive history looking at that right.
I'm done,
to
Madam
petition.
Chair.
Professor Donahue came in with her polished academic arguments, citing statutes and hypothetical privacy intrusions. It was a lecture, but Senator Kennedy cut through that fog with the cold, hard light of reality. He didn't deal in hypotheticals. He dealt in bodies. In terrorist plots stopped, American lives saved because of the very tools she wants to gut. While she talked about abstract constitutional overreach, he was talking about preventing the next 9/11. It was a clash between someone who studies life and death from a textbook and someone responsible for it. And then he delivered the line that shattered her entire premise. You're not talking to Bambi's baby brother here. Mic drop. What did that mean? It meant, I understand the threats you only read about. I see the intelligence you don't. Your naive idealism is a luxury I cannot afford. It was a fierce, justified rebuke of an elite academic trying to bind the hands of those tasked with keeping us safe with theoretical, not actual, risks. Let's call this what it is. The professor's argument is the pinnacle of a dangerous liberal fantasy that we can fight a war against shadowy, brutal enemies with one hand tied behind our back by procedure, that we should prioritize the potential privacy violation of a suspect over the actual prevention of a mass casualty event. Senator Kennedy obliterated that fantasy. He demanded specifics. Name one plot we missed because of this. Silence. He forced the debate onto the ground of results, where security hawks win every time against weak-kneed theorizing. Today wasn't close. It was a rout. It was a necessary, fiery reminder that in a dangerous world, strength isn't optional, security isn't negotiable, and when challenged by the hard truths of governance, the left's academic playbook burns up in the atmosphere of real responsibility. If you believe in putting American safety first, you saw a champion today. Subscribe for more unfiltered truth.
Okay, I got a second one there.
To Deceased People Act. Boy, that's a mouthful. Here's what I want to talk about. Many Louisianians read the stories about the welfare fraud in Minnesota and, frankly, in other states, and it makes them nauseous. I feel the same way. That's why I have been working for years, literally years, to target welfare fraud. Especially the fraudsters who conduct fraud in the name of deceased Americans. In 2023 alone, for example, the federal government sent $1.3 billion, not million, billion. The federal government sent $1.3 billion to dead people. It's so pervasive that the Social Security Administration, which maintains a list of dead Americans known as the Death Master File. If someone dies, the state sends the name of the deceased person to the Social Security Administration, and that person's name is listed on what's called the Death Master File. We found that Social Security was not sharing this information the names of the folks on the death master file with the rest of the federal government. One branch of government wasn't talking to another branch of government. The Social Security Administration told me when I confronted them about this and asked them, why don't you talk to your colleagues and other colleagues in the federal government so we can stop paying dead people? Social Security told me it needed Congress's permission to share this information with, for example, the Treasury Department. So it could include the list of dead Americans in its do not pay system. I didn't argue with them. I said, I'm just going to go pass a bill. Well, a few years ago, I did. I passed a bill called the Stopping Improper Payments to Deceased People Act. And that bill allowed the Social Security Administration to temporarily share its death master file with the Department of the Treasury. I had to amend the bill to provide, it's a long story and it was frustrating, to provide for a temporary sharing. They wanted to try it out first. Well, it worked. Duh. Since December of 2023, this bill has saved the federal government at least $330 million in improper payments. We're no longer paying dead people and having their friends or relatives or whomever cash the checks. It was obvious that Congress needed to make this data sharing arrangement permanent. So I had to introduce, and was happy to do it, I introduced a second bill to do just that. That's why it took years to get this done. This week, I'm pleased to say the House passed my bill, the Ending Improper Payments to Deceased People Act. This bill had already passed the Senate, and now that it's passed the House, it's on its way to President Trump's desk so he can sign it into law. Now, dead people don't need welfare. I think that's obvious. But I'm not going to stop with just this bill. I'm going to continue to urge my colleagues in the Senate and my friends in the House to pass another reconciliation bill, which we can do without Democratic votes, just like we did the one big, beautiful bill, to include the subject of welfare fraud. Welfare fraud. It's inexcusable. It's unconscionable. These are taxpayer dollars. And I'm not going to stop till we get it done. I want to talk to you about the Ending Improper Payments to Deceased People Act. Boy, that's a mouthful.
I'm going to play a short one. I'm trying to find the one I told Ann about.
Scammer is pleading guilty to a $68 million fraud scheme tied to the state's Medicaid home care program. Leah, what are we learning on this?
Yes, Natasha, we've been looking into this just this past week, as you mentioned, 2 big cases in court involving millions of dollars in kickbacks and fraudulent billing to Medicaid. And we're talking about another notable case tonight that involves a program called CDPAP. Now, if you're not familiar with that, it is for people who need to be cared for, but they don't want to go to a nursing home. So through Medicaid, they can hire their own caretaker. They get to choose if it's a friend or a relative as long as they go through the process. And while it sounds good, it is also a big target for scammers.
This is a program that is put in place to help care for people at their home instead of having them go in nursing homes.
Attorney John Flynn says while New York's Consumer-Directed Personal Assistance Program, or CDPAP, is meant to make things easier for loved ones who need care, it's also become the target of sophisticated scammers.
The actual program itself is for a good cause, but you have bad people out there who are taking advantage of federal and state money.
Just this past week, 2 New Yorkers pled guilty to a $68 million fraud scheme tied to CDPAP, billing Medicaid for services at Brooklyn-based adult daycares that never actually happened. These fraudsters were, quote, large-scale recruiters who bribed patients with laundered cash and billed Medicaid over $68 million for services that were not provided.
New York Attorney General Letitia James announcing a separate $1 million plus conviction this week, also involving fake billing and kickback schemes tied to the state's Medicaid program. Unfortunately for the state's CDPAP program, fraud is nothing new. Back in 2018, a man arranged for friends and family members to be paid as home caregivers for his sick mom. Later, investigators found out that his mom wasn't even in the country. She was living in Bangladesh. And during home inspections, his brother impersonated her to keep the fraud going. Back in 2024, Governor Kathy Hochul calling CDPAP a, quote, racket and one of the most abused programs in the entire history of the state of New York. News Nation reached out to the governor's office for comment on the recent fraud charges, and a spokesperson for the governor tells me she has, quote, taken steps to fix the system by cutting out hundreds of middlemen. Yet the fraud continues.
And Natasha, the governor's office also telling me that one example of Letitia James busting the transportation company owner is an example of efforts to stop this kind of crime from happening. And when Republicans asked for an audit of the CDPAP program here in New York, Hochul calling that a political stunt, saying there are already measures in place. Clearly, a lot of government-funded programs are the target of scammers. And of course, President Donald Trump announcing recently that new division to combat crimes like this. Natasha.
Leah Lando live in New York tracking this. Thank you.
I can't find it. I'll play a couple other short ones.
At a time. He provided receipts showing California Senator Adam Schiff committed mortgage fraud, which is a felony, by the way. Schiff signed the document claiming the Maryland address was his principal address, and the president wrote, quote, Adam Schiff is a thief. He should be prosecuted just like they tried to prosecute me and everyone else. The only difference is we were totally innocent. It was all a giant hoax. And what's ironic is as soon as the president took office, Adam Schiff had the nerve to say this.
They could go after the president's enemies. They could open investigations of people for no reason, with no evidence. They could really turn people's lives upside down in the process. And of course, merely opening an investigation against someone, even if it's without merit, that can create a cloud over that person.
Oh, now that it's your name on the file, suddenly you're worried about lawfare. Sorry, Schiff, doesn't work like that. Play stupid games, and you're going to win felony charges. President Trump is on a roll and taking down his political enemies one at a time. He provided...
We'll get to Billy Bean after this one, and hopefully I'll find that other one. 5 minutes.
My name is Allie Hopper, president and co-founder of Guard Against Trafficking, a nonprofit dedicated to combating human trafficking. As a Hispanic mother, I have held a 6-year-old Colombian child in my arms, cold, dirty, and shaking, left to die at the border by the cartel. I have seen children that have crossed the border alone, holding scraps of paper with sponsor information given to them by the cartels. When I testified in November, we discussed the exploitation of children at our border. Today, countless children continue to be neglected, abused, or trafficked by a system meant to protect them. We must ask, how was this allowed to happen, and what role did NGOs play? My research partner, Dr. Jared Sadolsky, and I have conducted extensive field work, including interviewing incarcerated traffickers, cartel members, whistleblowers, and unaccompanied alien children themselves. An ORR field specialist had visited a home to place a 17-year-old and reported serious concerns, most notably that the adult claiming to be the child's mother was adorned in MS-13 tattoos. Despite these concerns, ORR leadership overruled that specialist. Tragically, 3 months later, that child was found dead, his pants around his ankles, with an older man passed out next to him. This heartbreaking case is not isolated. It highlights a system overwhelmed by both scale and mismanagement. Since 2008, over $20 billion has been dispersed under the UAC program, almost $14 billion of that in the last 6 years alone, meaning over 2/3 of funding was spent in just 1/3 of the program's lifespan. Yet despite this massive investment, hundreds of thousands of children remain unaccounted for as the U.S. taxpayer dollars fueled a system hijacked by criminal networks. No bid billion-dollar contracts were awarded with little oversight, while influx facilities became transportation hubs. A striking example is Endeavor's. Their IRS filings show revenue soaring from $65 million in 2019 to $1.18 billion in 2022, driven almost entirely by federal contracts. During this time, CEO John Allman's salary rose from $292,000 to $730,000, with six-figure executive surge bonuses added. Endeavor's ended 2022 with a $112 million surplus. Andrew Lorenzen-Strait, a former Biden transition official and ICE advisor, helped secure no-bid federal contracts for Endeavor's and was caught on camera calling the border crisis a boom for business. Inside Endeavor's, leadership blocked critical safety protocols, resisted oversight, and silenced internal dissent. Our interviews with contracted auditors at Endeavor's Pico, Texas facility revealed disturbing findings. Male staff had been found inside female dorm rooms. An employee had led 150 teenage girls in sexually explicit routines, dance routines, teaching them how to twerk on multiple occasions. A female over 18 had been shielded from ICE. Others nearing 18 were released early to avoid transfer to ICE. And auditors were blocked from reviewing child sponsor placements. These abuses are not unique to Endeavor's. Similar patterns existed across multiple NGOs. Federal contracts had prioritized speed over safety and rewarded output over outcomes, conditions which cartels exploited. A cartel operated in Tecate, Mexico, explained to us how children were routinely kidnapped and funneled into the U.S. for profit. Cartels infiltrated NGOs along those smuggling routes, turning humanitarian pathways into trafficking pipelines. Weak sponsor vetting worsened this problem. An HHS audit later found that 70% of sponsor applications were fraudulent, making proper post-placement welfare checks nearly impossible. Recently, we discovered about 117 unaccompanied children believed to be trafficked on a farm in the Midwest, where our intervention sparked a current investigation. These cases are emerging nationwide. Last week, ICE and CBP arrested about 361 illegal aliens at 2 cannabis farms in California, finding 10 unaccompanied children. So where do we go from here? This is not about politics. It's about protecting children and confronting modern-day slavery. Good intentions and humanitarian missions must never excuse harm when policies enable exploitation. Accountability and decisive action must ensure it never happens again.
Okay, that was good. 15-minute Billy Bean, the first one.
Next time in Texas about 10 a.m. Happy MLK birthday today. This is a banking and post office holiday in the U.S. We have a lot of parades going on. And some of the things I'm going to cover today, X2 flare and a strange train crash in Spain, President Trump, Denmark can't defend. In Iran, I have sources that indicate there have been 60,000 civilians killed by the Iranian military. Oh, and Cuba declares war on the U.S. So we have this from the Telegraph that Cuba declares war against the U.S. In response to the U.S. embargo of oil from Venezuela, so no oil is reaching Cuba. However, this deck of war was put forth by the Cuban National Defense and not the government of Cuba. So it's unclear who's in charge in Cuba. So that's going on. And we have this. So we had yesterday, coming off the sun, we had an X 1.99 flare. Some are calling a X2 flare that did give us a radiation storm called a solar storm. It's up to a S3 level. Also gave us radio storm 2 to 3, interfering with radio signals and other communication signals. And it did put out a halo CME, which is a large CME, Earth-facing, that will hit Earth about January 20 to 21, and possibly later tonight, and give us a strong G3 to G4 with a KP index of 6 to 8. Now, I submit there's the possibility that this strong flare from the sun could also have impacted the trains in Spain. We saw last year, I believe, we had a blackout in electricity in Spain and also France that was later tied to solar activity. And what we're seeing going on in Spain, they had last night a train crash in Spain. One train going toward Madrid and one going toward Cordova, north and southbound. Now, these trains were on parallel tracks, and I'll demonstrate to you. So they were on parallel tracks, one going to Madrid and one going toward Cordova. They were both modern trains, recently inspected. Railroad experts who were called to the crash site are mystified. They have no explanation for the train crash, but these railroad experts did rule out human error.
Without Headway, I can't imagine that I would ever be taking insurance.
Saying it must be some type of technical issue. What we know today is that they have cranes out there. So the two trains were on parallel tracks. And for some reason, one of the trains, both trains, not one, both, derailed. And the carriages of the trains are all twisted. So they derailed, jumped the tracks, and then they rolled down an embankment. So far, they have 39 dead. They expect more. They have cranes out there lifting up the trains. They expect the death toll to go up. Injured are dozens and dozens of people. And yeah, both trains overturn. The metal carriages are twisted. I put forth this, the possibility that this X flare yesterday, which would correlate with about the time the train accident occurred, could have been part of the impact cause behind the train crash, because we have seen and demonstrated by science and technology that the electrical grid blackout in Spain and France last year was tied to solar activity. It's being put forth that the particular geology in Spain and France and other parts of Europe are particularly attuned to impact by space weather. So that's going on. And we have this. In Greenland, Dialogue Works interviewed Colonel Bod, who says that Denmark cannot defend Greenland against Russia and China, and pointing out, as I did in a previous video, Denmark's own intel service just put out an intel report a month ago saying that both Russia and China will take Greenland by force militarily. Now, of course, obviously, Denmark cannot defend Greenland against Russia and China. So that's going on. And we see that Colonel Bod is calling President Trump's tariff move against Europe to get them to sell Greenland to the U.S. as a form of blackmail. I see it as a part of Make America Great Again. President Trump and the U.S. military have said that the U.S. need Greenland for U.S. strategic security, which would also secure Greenland, Canada, the U.S., and ultimately Europe. So we see the Europeans acting irrationally. And we have this in Syria. Now, this al-Sharaa, alleged to be the president of Syria, has moved in Syrian military to take over a Kurdish area and wants the Kurdish military to incorporate into his military. This is a unique genetic and cultural and religion people. But hey, doesn't al-Sharaa have a history of being a terrorist and actually killing U.S. military? Yes, he does. So we shouldn't be surprised to see him moving in any kind of military he can operate and coming against an independent people. But during the course of this, the U.S. military, the greatest military in the history of the world, as far as I'm concerned, did retaliate. For the recent deaths, we had 2 U.S. military troops and 1 American translator killed in Syria. We do not know by who, although most likely it was a terrorist ISIS group, and the U.S. military have killed the leader of this group, who, Jason,
I just sent you something, man.
JASL Bilal Hassan al-Jassam, Al-Qaeda leader tied to ISIS, and that's the group that was tied to the killing of the 2 U.S. military and the 1 American translator. So way to go, U.S. military. And we have this regarding Ukraine, an interview with Alex Craner. He's a European journalist, that the U.S. sees Europe as being an adversary. Yes, they are being an adversary now with the U.S. acquisition of Greenland, and that China is certainly the enemy of America. And we have this. President Trump's taking, so Alex Craner puts forth the same position I do. With President Trump gaining Greenland for U.S. strategic security, we'll get a twofer. It'll also take us out of NATO. And Alex Craner also voices the same position. The Greenland taken by the U.S. will get the U.S. out of NATO. And this is an interesting point I had not thought about that Alex Craner brings out. This will be good for the U.S. because legally we are tied to NATO through a treaty. Now, a treaty requires ratification by Congress, 2/3 of the Congress. However, if the EU takes certain steps, as we're seeing them take right now, it gets the U.S. out of the NATO treaty. So way to go, President Trump. So that's going on. And we have this in Iran. The U.S. military continues to prep to take Iran. We're moving carrier strike groups in, planes and bombs. Okay. So I have from a credible source an estimation of the number of Iranian civilians, unarmed, who have been killed in the streets of Iran by the Iranian military. 50 to 60,000 is being put forth. And this individual has ties to the U.S. government. And I believe his information is much more credible than other sources I've heard. So it's good to be in prayer for America, President Trump, the U.S. military, and world peace. I love you, and I'll see you soon.
Okay, only one so far. I'm going to do this short one real quick.
Plan. Inventory and control of all land, all water, all minerals, all plants, all animals, all construction, all means of production, all food, all energy, all information, and all human beings in the world. And this is a plan that was agreed to by 179 nations back in 1992. It's a United Nations plan. It's called the Agenda for the 21st Century. And so many of us around the world think that sustainable development, it just sounds so great. Isn't it about recycling and creative reuse and creating energy and food resources for everyone? And the answer is no, it really is not. It's about moving populations into city centers, concentrated city centers, and clearing them out of the rural areas. It's constructed of non-governmental organizations, corporations, and government in order to dictate and regulate what it is that happens around the world. Regionalization is the stepping stone to globalization, and globalization is the standardization of all systems. All systems have to be brought into harmony in order to control them all. And the goal of Agenda 21 is one world government and total control from a central unit. The principles are public-private partnerships, which is fascism. And this is how it's implemented on the ground, is through this joining together between corporations, non-governmental organizations, and governments in order to cut out the actual individual, your voter, and instead to take that to a level where we literally cannot penetrate. This is a corporatocracy. It's a totalitarian state being developed right now all over the world while we are moving towards the end game. We are not there. And this is the opportunity that all of us have now to stand up, to speak out. We are free and we need to continue to be free. And I do believe that we will win, but we have to become aware that there is a fight.
That was good.
Microphone and a mouthful of nobody's above the law. Right now's the moment to put your money where your mouth is. Because Bill and Hillary Clinton were lawfully subpoenaed to show up in court today and tomorrow and testify, and they are outright refusing. And don't you dare sit here and try to insult our intelligence, pretending it's complicated. Because let me tell y'all this, their sweet cheeks. If a regular American was to ignore a subpoena, the system would be all over them like white on rice. They would be so far up them cheeks. Court orders are not suggestions. Subpoenas are not optional. And just because you have former in your title does not give you immunity. So if the Clintons are in contempt, you better apply it fully, equally, and without delay. Either the law applies to everyone or you admit out loud that power does buy people protection. We, the American people, we're waiting. And
Hey,
we are watching.
That was a good one. Again. Okay, I found that guy at TikTok. He had a couple I think we missed. Actually, it's today. Oh.
News actually a couple of days ago. The governor of the great state of Minnesota and his mayor of the city of Minneapolis are going to have to appear before a grand jury and be deposed. Subpoenas have been issued by the Department of Justice. Both Walz and Fry are going to have to come before a grand jury, and they're going to be deposed, ask questions, because they're fully under investigation now for impeding the operations of ICE, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and federal officers from doing their job. Apparently, they were putting out statements, etc., of all kinds. Was there a physical obstruction? Well, that's up to the grand jury to find out if criminal charges, and these are criminal charges that may come forward. More importantly, I want folks to understand that when you
you're going already?
Let me put it to you this way. Both the governor and the mayor.
What do you think of that blue
specific
light
words,
there, and
rhetoric, to basically rile up many of their, I guess what you might say, constituents to fight ICE. More importantly, did they actually obstruct? Well, for the most part, they've stood in the way. A lot of their rhetoric is, for the most part, incited their constituents in their cities and their neighborhoods. But more importantly, why are these people going out? Why are these people physically obstructing? I mean, blocking the cars, blocking the transport cars, etc. Because there is a major cartel throughout this country, a Marxist movement, a Marxist cartel that I talk about in my documentaries. I'm the founder of EPAC, Ensure the Preservation of America and our Constitution. There's a Marxist political warfare being waged on this country by thousands and thousands of Marxists here in our country and in our education, our universities, and many in our federal governments and local and state governments. This is a coordinated effort by the Marxist movement and the Marxists in this country to obstruct anything that Donald Trump and the federal government want to do with regard to immigration enforcement. We have millions of people that were ushered in by the Biden administration. They were used as pawns, flooded the country. They were actually trafficked into this country by the Biden administration to do one thing: get on the welfare rolls, on the welfare teat, and basically bankrupt this country. That was the goal. Now, Minnesota's governor and Minneapolis's mayor are going to have to be deposed before a grand jury. They're going to have to appear. And for the most part, criminal charges could come forward.
Here's Kay.
It remains
guess
to be
who I
seen.
gave a wrench to finally?
What's going to have to
After
happen
years.
is the Department of Justice, and for the most part, the grand jury is going to have to tell them that this is what they're going to say. You're going to need to be, and they've already, the mayor and Governor Walz, basically to some small degree, have said, well, we can't, you guys got to simmer down and stuff. Don't go out there doing that. This is just backtracking because they know exactly what they did. A lot of this rhetoric coming forward in the Marxist, I guess what you might say, movement, this is all funded. This is all coordinated. This is all basically against Donald Trump and in immigration and customs enforcement operations. So having said that, like I said, the governor of Minnesota and the mayor of Minneapolis, both Mr. Walz and Mr. Fry, are going to have to come before a grand jury and be deposed and explain what the hell's going on. And they're going to be made, I guarantee you, they're going to be forced. If they're going to be told, if you don't make a statement to these people in the neighborhoods and around your constituents to basically do not, here's the best way I can tell you. They're going to have to actually enforce the law themselves within their own community. They're going to have to instruct their police officers within their communities to get involved and stifle, okay, and calm these protesters down. These protesters are attacking the cars, are getting in the way, obstructing. Tim Walz, the governor, and Mr. Fry, the mayor of Minneapolis, are going to have to physically get before the microphones and tell their constituents to no longer to stand down. And then they're going to have to get their police officers in their respective states, in their respective cities, to basically enforce the law and keep these people from obstructing ICE operations in their cities. Hey, everybody, HG and HD.
Okay, yeah, okay, I follow him. He's on TikTok, not YouTube. This lady's back on YouTube or TikTok too.
Why there is so many ICE agents on the street. You can listen to people like the mayor of Minneapolis and say he doesn't understand why there's thousands of people on the street. I'm going to give you just some numbers and some names to explain this, okay? Just a little bit. And these are actual American citizens that have died at the hand of illegals, okay? We already know the common names of Lake and Riley. We know all about Jocelyn Nunegray. They were very publicized. But let me just give you a few other names that matter, okay? Because these numbers matter to me. When they talk about American citizens that have died at the hands of ICE, there has been Renee.
I just found
and
her.
It's a travesty. Nobody should. I hate that anyone's losing their life over this situation, but here's the thing. Again, I'm going to say this time and time again. We are all going to suffer natural consequences. If you insert yourself in rioting and doing what you're doing and impeding and doing, we already know what she did, okay? You already know how I feel about that. You don't need me to stress it again, but here we go. 7-year-old Ivory Smith was killed in a crash caused by Joel Enriquez Gonzalez of Venezuela in Texas, 2024. 8-year-old Maverick Martin was killed in a crash caused by Karmit Singh of India in California. 10-year-old Alex A.J. Wise Jr. was killed in a crash caused by Rogelio Ortiz Olivas of Mexico in 2024. 18-year-olds Talia and Rylan were both killed in a crash caused by Axel Flores Cordova of Honduras in 2024. 19-year-old Anya and Nicolay were both killed in a crash caused by Oscar Eduardo Ortega of Mexico. 20-year-old Katie Abraham was killed in a hit-and-run car crash caused by Julio Cucol Ball of Guatemala in 2025 in Illinois. 21-year-old Sarah Root was killed in a crash caused by Ezwin Meja of Honduras. 29-year-old Grayson Davis was killed in a crash caused by illegal alien Jorge Peralta. 44-year-old police officer David Lee was killed by Raymond Chavez Rodriguez of Honduras in Missouri in 2024. 47-year-old Melissa Powell and her 16-year-old son, Rhea Jordan, were killed in a crash caused by Jose Guadalupe in Colorado in 2024. I remember when that happened. I lived here. 70-year-old Robert Bowles was killed in a crash by illegal alien Jorge Urbina Lopez in Texas 2025. Listen, those are just some of the ones that were killed in reckless driving accidents by illegal aliens. And then, of course, you do have the drug trafficking and the murders and all the other things. Listening to the mayor of Minneapolis get on and say, can you imagine what it's like to have your state bombarded by thousands of ICE immigrants? Yep. I can imagine it, and I'll tell you why. Because the president is doing his job and he's sending people out to clean up this mess. What makes me so sad is that if you go and if you look at just the state of Minnesota, there are people that have died in Minnesota at the hands of illegal aliens. Did you ever once hear Walz or the mayor of Minneapolis? Some of you do the research. Prove me wrong. I would love to be proven wrong on this. Walz went out to Renee's memorial site and shed his tears with his wife, and Frey talked about the murder of Renee. Never once will you find. You have Haley Hegelson. She's 18, and her boyfriend Bradley, they were struck by an illegal immigrant driving drunk. They were killed in Minnesota. 55-year-old Mafalda Thayer was murdered and beheaded by a Cuban national, Alex Viltros. A Minnesota landlord, which they left her name out because she was brutally raped by a Mexican national, Rolando Lopez Menez. Did you ever hear Walz or Frey talk about them? Did you see any candle vigils for them? Did you see them memorialized? Did you see a GoFundMe? I'm getting real fucking tired of listening to these politicians talk about the illegals and the raids and the rights that they have and due process. And I can guarantee you that of the 25 names that I just read to you of families that have been affected by people that were murdered or died in car accidents or were raped, beheaded, all of those people, do you not think that they wish their family got due process? That those people were not allowed to come into this country? You're protecting the wrong people. You're on the wrong side of humanity. This isn't red. This isn't blue. This is what side of fucking humanity are you going to find yourself on? I don't agree with all of ICE's ways of doing things. You have to understand that. But I also think we are in a cluster right now. Tens of millions of people were let into this country. We don't have enough ICE to manage that problem. And there are some people that are here illegally, but just peacefully minding their business and working. They still need to take care of their paperwork and do what they got to do. I do want to focus on just the major criminals, but I'm telling you, you people have been fighting ICE no matter who they went after. So stop making it sound like you're protecting your neighbors, because you're not. For those of you that were protecting your neighbors, for those of you that want to do something with your neighbors, dig into your pockets, help them be able to pay for their paperwork if it's something that they can't do, give them counsel, give them a referral to a lawyer, help them with that process. But blowing your rape whistles and throwing shit in the face of legal federal officers is a crime. Like, what you're doing is criminal. You're impeding investigations. You're part of the problem. You're making this worse. You're making it harder. You're getting online and talking about people that have been murdered that haven't been murdered. You're talking about the 6-month-old that died in Minnesota. He didn't die. He's got breathing problems. The whole family had to go to the hospital because they got caught in the crossfire of the rioting because they were trying to escape their neighborhood from you fucking lunatics. But he didn't die. The gentleman that got hauled off yesterday from his car at a gas station, the one that everybody's like, where did he go? I haven't seen him, and he was limp. Yeah, you're not going to get proof of life. He's at a Texas detainment center. Stop getting on here and saying he was murdered. He wasn't murdered. All you're doing is you're fixating on lies, and you're creating more anger and disruption. People are going to go to the streets because they think a 6-month-old has been murdered when it never was. And if you don't want the 6-month-old to get caught in the crossfire, go the fuck home.
She's
Stop
right.
it. You're acting. How many times are we going to say this? You're acting like assholes. Oh my gosh. It's grotesque behavior. I'm so agitated by it. I can tell you right now, I have 2 boys, a grandchild, a daughter-in-law, a husband, parents that I love. There is no way on God's green earth, no matter what I stood for, that I would go and insert myself in federal investigations. If I saw a guy getting pulled over and he was being arrested as a drunk driver and I didn't believe he was drunk, do you think I'm going to go blow a whistle in the cop's face? No, there's going to have to be some due process. They're going to have to go to court. He's going to have to prove that he wasn't drunk, but it's none of my business. It's not my job to go out and impede that investigation. You sit here and say that they're baiting people and they're waiting and they're hovering and they're sitting outside their homes and they're sitting outside schools and they're sitting. Do you want to know something? If you go, my husband used to be a state trooper. They had what they called fishing holes. There were certain speed traps where people were always speeding like lunatics. There's certain bars. You don't think that's what they do? Police officers will sit outside a bar at 1, 2, 3 a.m. waiting for people to come out. Do you think that that's harassing them? Or do you think that's being preventative, proactive, rather than reactive? Would you rather them wait and show up at the scene after they fucking killed someone driving drunk? Or would you rather that they wait and they catch them before they leave the house? Use some critical thinking skills and start using some common sense, because you all sound like a bunch of ridiculous fools. Come on now. Let's get it together. It would appear that.
Well said. Well said. He has a better one here from Canada News.
Canada up so that it does really well in the New World Order. I know, right? Let me just show you.
Mine is the first visit of a Canadian Prime Minister.
That's an old one. Sorry. Okay, let's do Q.
Some of my criticisms against Pam Bondi. I don't want to criticize Pam Bondi. I really hope and pray that she does the right thing. I want to see people pay for their crimes against our country. And I know that we need Pam Bondi or whoever the head of the DOJ is. We need them to do their job. And I don't feel that she is working with the same level of veracity that we've seen Democrat attorney generals work, especially Merrick Garland. By this time in the Biden administration, there were many, many arrests of people who hadn't done anything wrong. But we know that several other people have. And Donald Trump is also frustrated as well. In fact, this past weekend, he came out and was very, very critical of the way that Pam Bondi's DOJ has handled one specific situation, and that would be the situation concerning the auto pen. Now, if you guys remember, I've spoken about this before, that Donald Trump rendered all auto pen signings that were done under the Biden administration to be null and void. Not only that, he wants to file charges against everyone who used the auto pen without permission, which he says were just about all of them that were used without Biden's permission. They were used illegally, both to free people from jail, to create executive orders, many, many things. The problem is that that's been over a month ago now, and what it takes is for Pam Bondi or the DOJ to go before a judge and render those auto pen signings to be illegal, and then to move forward and press charges. Now, not only has Congressman Comer, who is the chairman of the Oversight Committee, he's furious as well, because he says we keep on making these criminal referrals to the Justice Department, but for whatever reason, they're not getting back to us. They're not following through, and it's taking too long. And it feels like the clock is running out because we're about to get into the midterms. And Donald Trump has said the exact same thing. Why is this not done yet? I want these people to pay a price for what they did to our country, which I have to say, I can't disagree with him. This isn't about retribution. This isn't about seeing people suffer. This is about seeing justice. This is about seeing people give us a lame president to put someone in office and to abuse the elderly, let's be fair, and to use someone as a puppet, lie to the American people, make us the laughing stock of the world, tell us that that person is competent and up to the job and up to the task, even though we all saw that he was not. They continued to lie to us until the very end, when the world could see for themselves that the emperor had no clothes on. And then they came out and said, yeah, he was going downhill pretty quickly. So who signed all of these executive orders? Well, that is what Trump is trying to get down to the bottom of. And it's been over a month, yet there has been nothing done about it. These things are still sitting on the attorney general's desk, and Trump has had about enough of it. I'm curious to see what happens with this. I know Donald Trump is not really wanting to get into the weeds like he did last administration by letting people go, but it sounds like, based on his statements, that he's getting a little fed up. Do you guys think that Donald Trump is going to move on? Or do you feel like Donald Trump is going to let Pam Bondi play out? He's really frustrated. The Oversight Committee is really frustrated. We'll see how it goes. Comment below. Let me know how you think.
Yeah, I got the TikTok lady coming up. Oh, wait.
Nevertheless, the FBI used their full resources, including a SWAT team, to try and terrorize him. Meanwhile, how many churches that were firebombed or pregnancy care centers that were firebombed, how many of them were protected by the last administration? Just about zero.
If that doesn't fire you up, watch this clip of the pro-life protesters that Biden threw in jail. And while you're watching it, I want you to keep something in mind. Just remember everything you've seen play out on your television screen over the past 3 weeks, right? We've seen the far left screaming into megaphones, and we've seen them singing protest songs that were just painfully off key. But not one of those people were arrested because the Republican Party believes in the freedom of speech, the First Amendment, something that our nation is founded on. As you think about that, watch these people, because this is who Biden threw behind bars.
Praise to the King of Kings. Yes, you are my everything, and I will adore you.
How are we living in a world where people singing peacefully in a hallway that aren't blocking an entrance or stopping people from getting treatment are locked up in jail? Meanwhile, we don't seem to care about the terrorists that are crossing our borders, walking right into our country. I'll tell you why this is happening, because the left has zero tolerance for opposing viewpoints. So they found a way to abuse the FACE Act.
So the point of the FACE Act was 1994, they were trying to stop the rescues. So that's blocking access to the abortion facilities. Now, that should not have been, that's not a federal policy, especially now post-Dobbs. There's no abortion right. But the law is still on the books. The Biden administration isn't just charging people under that law, though. They're adding extra charges. So that
ended him. Mark.
Okay, that's the first one there.
Against law enforcement. I will make sure that no American is subjected to death threats like I was, and subjected to moving their residences like I was because of government overreach. I have no interest, no desire, and will not, if confirmed, go backwards. There will be no politicization at the FBI. There will be no retributive actions taken.
No other way to spin this than it's a massive win for President Trump and really the MAGA movement, with Kash Patel being confirmed as FBI director. Now, in this video, I'm going to show you the Democrats. They are now begging to be bailed out from political retribution, which is laughable at this point after they spent the last 4 years weaponizing the Justice Department. I've got several examples of their corruption with receipts because we have proof on this show, not just allegations. I also have some shocking video of a pro-life protest that quickly ended behind bars. And I will tell you, I had to actually watch this to really believe it. It's pretty amazing. We're also going to take a look at what day one looks like on the job for Kash Patel. But first, let's talk about how the integrity of our law enforcement and the very future of our national security have been on the brink of extinction thanks to Democratic leadership.
To restore the trust in the FBI, that has degraded, not by my opinion, by the Gallup poll, that only 40% of Americans have trust and faith in the FBI. It is a cataclysmic failure in leadership to get to that point that did not happen over time.
Even CNN having to admit that only 41% of Americans actually trust the FBI. And for those who want to blame Trump, there is no data to support that argument because when he was in office, 57% of Americans trusted the institution. That's a 16-point drop during the Biden administration, and that is huge. And they only have themselves to blame because Americans are now.
There can never be a tolerance.
2.5.
People get upset and angry. And if you remember what the civil rights movement was about, is to disrupt, to make uncomfortable. And that's what they're doing. And that's what I believe when I say everyone has to be willing to sacrifice something.
White people who are living lavish, comfortable lives while children are dragged into concentration camps. You're living real life, nice lives with your lattes and Somali brothers and sisters. You come here to a man wearing a suit. Is a preacher? Did Jesus wear a suit? Did Jesus not standing with your Somali and Latino communities? Out now! Living real comfortable while children are dragged into concentration camps. You're all living real comfortable, are you?
So let me ask you again. Have we reached that moment yet? Now these poor peoples and these families that are living there in that hell every day can't even go to church to find peace and to pray for their communities. They're in a place that is protected by their First Amendment, freedom of religion, and peaceful assembly. But they can't even do that. So now these agitators are criminally trespassing. They're showing disorderly conduct. They're disrupting religious worship. They're also being harassed and intimidated in the house of God, while they're exercising their freedom of religion and their peaceful assembly. That is potentially a civil rights violation. I will ask this one more time, slowly, clearly, and without apology. Is enough enough? When do we stop talking and start acting? Because expecting urgency isn't betrayal, and expecting our leadership to do something isn't flipping sides. So if the churches aren't safe, if the citizens aren't safe, and if the law enforcement isn't safe, then where and when do we draw the line and expect our leadership to step in?
Not a good one. I don't know if you remember this one, Kay. Texas news.
About 1,400 McKesson employees after the move. They even opened a new distribution center in Roseville, California. McKesson Ventures stayed behind in San Francisco with a small technology development team. But the power left, the decision makers left, the headquarters left, the prestige and the status left. San Francisco went from being home to a Fortune 6 company to being an afterthought, a branch office instead of the center of the action. McKesson was far from alone in making this choice. Bechtel, the giant construction company, left. Jamba Juice, the smoothie chain, left. The North Face, the outdoor clothing brand, left. Core-Mark Holding Company packed up and moved to Texas. California was bleeding corporate headquarters at an alarming rate. The Hoover Institution at Stanford University tracked the exodus closely. They found that 352 company headquarters left California between 2018 and 2021 alone. That includes 11 Fortune 1000 companies. The flood only accelerated after McKesson showed other companies the way out. Tesla left California for Texas. Oracle left California for Texas. Hewlett-Packard Enterprise left California for Texas. Charles Schwab left California for Texas. After 145 years in the state, even Chevron left California for Texas. SpaceX left California for Texas. The pattern is impossible to ignore or explain away. Today, Dallas-Fort Worth has 21 companies on the Fortune 500 list. McKesson is now the highest-ranked company in all of North Texas. They sit at number 9 on the national Fortune 500. Their revenue has grown to over $308 billion annually. They are the largest healthcare company in the entire United States, and they achieved all of that growth after leaving California. The irony could not be more obvious. Texas keeps winning these corporate relocations. California keeps losing them. The Tax Foundation ranked California 48th out of 50 states for business tax climate. Only New Jersey and New York scored worse. Housing costs in California run 110% higher than the national average. Employees cannot afford to live anywhere near their offices. Companies cannot recruit talent because nobody wants to move there. More than half of them chose Texas as their new home.
Under 4 minutes here.
In 2021 alone, 64 businesses fled California. That was the highest number in a single year on record. McKesson saw all of this coming back in 2018. They made the smart move before the stampede started. Brian Tyler studied economics at the University of Chicago. He understood what the numbers were telling him. California's numbers simply did not add up anymore. The math was broken and getting worse every year. The company that started delivering medicine by covered wagon in 1833 now operates from Irving, Texas. They have been in business for over 190 years. They survived everything America threw at them. They distributed COVID-19 vaccines for the federal government during the pandemic. Over 370 million doses delivered to Americans who needed them. The politicians did not care, so they left, and they are thriving like never before. Today, if you need prescription medicine, there is a 1 in 3 chance McKesson delivered it to your pharmacy. They serve over 50,000 pharmacy locations across the country. They support 75% of American hospitals in some capacity. They employ tens of thousands of workers in good-paying jobs, just not in California anymore. The Golden State pushed away a company that helped build American healthcare, a company older than California itself, a company that had been loyal to San Francisco for 50 years. None of that history mattered. California's politicians kept raising taxes. They kept adding regulations. They kept making it harder and more expensive to do business. They never stopped to ask if companies might leave. Move worked exactly as planned.
Okay, yeah, we'll do about 5 more short ones. Two minutes.
And that is, we're going to investigate this. Is that the protesters or is that the mayor and governor for inciting?
That's everybody. That's everybody. The FACE Act is a longstanding federal statute that prohibits force, threats, obstruction, any kind of interference with a religious place of worship. And it carries criminal penalties and violations. And what the Attorney General is saying is the truth. She will come down hard. The Department of Justice will come down hard. Our Civil Rights Division will come down hard on anybody who tries to impede or intimidate somebody in a place of worship, or a police officer or an ICE officer. It's just not going to happen in this administration. And Pam is making that very clear.
So the mayor comes out and says they're just speaking up peacefully. They're standing up for their neighbors. And it's not just about resisting Trump. This is about loving and caring for the people that call the city home. Do you feel better about it now?
Okay. Yeah. So we have a mayor who's a Somali sympathizer who we've seen dancing around on stage with their flag instead of an American flag. And I'm supposed to sit here. Exactly. And I'm supposed to sit here and believe that that is not creating more hostility where we have I just spoke with Brian, 200 agents the other night that are leaving their families, going there to keep the peace, to get criminals off the streets, to get people that don't belong here out so that we are a safer country. And they don't even know what they're standing for. And let me also tell you something. The Department of Justice will look into whomever is funding this. It's no different than a RICO action. If you are funding mass protests, if you are having protests that are not righteous protests, there are First Amendment rights that we respect, but that are putting people in risk, not allowing people to go to church, this Department of Justice will come down on you.
Alina, your reaction to what the AG has said, and that is, we're going to investigate this. Is that the protesters or is that the mayor and governor for inciting?
That's everybody. That's everybody. The FACE Act is a longstanding federal statute that prohibits force, threats, obstruction, any kind of.
Someone's covering live coverage outside of ICE facility. They're protesting. Okay, what we got down here?
Is serving 9 years Colorado State Prison for taking a forensic copy and preserving the evidence of the 2020 election. Last night, it appears she was assaulted at approximately 9 p.m. in La Vista Correctional Facility, and she's now potentially facing another felony assault charge. And guys, this just seems like a setup to me. I'm just going to call it out like I see it. We just talked about how Tina Peters had a very, very promising hearing before the panel of 3 appellate judges that were reviewing her case and possibly looking at resentencing Tina Peters and reducing her sentence after it was discovered that one of the charges against Tina Peters was charged as a felony, despite the fact that the language was presented to the grand jury as a misdemeanor. So this is prosecutorial misconduct, and it puts the entire case at risk. This was a very, very good development in favor of Tina Peters, possibly getting a resentencing before a new judge in her favor based on the way the judges reacted at that appellate hearing. And if you want the full breakdown, you can watch that video I did the other day. But coincidentally, after that development and things finally start to go in the way of Tina Peters, she gets assaulted in the La Vista Correctional Facility at 9 p.m. last night and is potentially facing a felony assault charge for defending herself. So let's go ahead and read this, and then we'll talk a little bit more about what this means for Tina Peters. So last night, Tina Peters was assaulted. Tina was inside a maintenance closet to fill up a water unit, probably was about to mop the floor and filling up one of those mop buckets, when an inmate approached her in the closet and began striking her in anger. Tina raised her hands and pushed the inmate away. Per Tina, I guess they had a chance to speak with her about what happened. She says that the camera showed her pushing the inmate away from her out of the closet. She was subsequently handcuffed, shackled, and brought to solitary confinement. Tina was told she is being charged with felony assault for defending herself against an unprovoked attack. She would be locked down completely for 24 to 72 hours and held in IDO, which is the hole, for an unknown period of time. As far as Tina is aware, the inmate who assaulted her has not been charged, slept in their cell last night peacefully, and will face no consequences. This incident is clearly a targeted attack against Peters. In all likelihood, it is being used as an opportunity to isolate and harass Tina Peters. Tina has been warning officials that something like this would happen eventually. She was advised to apply for the incentive pod. However, Tina has applied repeatedly and been denied, despite nothing disqualifying her. Something is not right at LVCF. Tina has minor injuries, but is not seriously injured as of this morning. Can you imagine 70-year-old Tina Peters being charged another felony charge for defending herself. Please support Tina, and here's her legal defense fund. A link here. You guys can find it at tinapeters.us if you'd like to contribute. But this is what's going down. She's got her case going before the appeals court. Things are going in her favor. And then coincidentally, she gets assaulted and is facing another felony for defending herself. And guess what? Of course, the appeals court, they're going to look at this, and whether they admit it or not, it's going to influence how they view her. Because one of the things that they're looking at is the fact that Tina Peters was denied due process, never got an opportunity to present her intent behind why she did what she did in taking that forensic copy of the Dominion machines following the 2020 election. She never got an opportunity to show her good moral character and what was going through her mind and what she was feeling at the time and why she took the actions that she did that led to her being charged with multiple crimes by the state of Colorado. So the appellate court are weighing the charges against her and whether or not they were justified or whether or not there was any prosecutorial misconduct, whether or not the judge exercised any kind of bias, whether things were misrepresented to the jury. And of course, they're considering Tina's character in all of this. And so how does this look on paper? As Tina Peters' case is going before the appeals court, she's assaulting somebody in prison. I mean, that's what they're going to see. And the timing of all this just seems a little bit strange to me. So this is obviously not what I want to report to you guys. I try to focus on the positives. I try to focus on the wins, but this is what's happening right now to Tina Peters, political prisoner. And not to mention, we had the governor of Colorado admit that Tina Peters' sentencing was a little harsh. So we had Trump pardoning her, which was more of a ceremonial act or a symbolic gesture because Tina Peters is in state prison for state crimes, and Trump's pardon ability, his constitutional ability to pardon, is limited to federal crimes and people in federal prison serving sentences that were given to them by the federal government. So his pardon power cannot reach Tina Peters. Only the governor can pardon her. And what I was hoping to play out was the appeals court would see that an injustice has happened here. She would get a resentencing before a new judge. The new judge would give her a resentencing that was much more lenient. And then the governor would be more apt to potentially issue a pardon, essentially under duress from the political pressure leveraged by Trump. And ultimately, she would get out of prison. That was my most optimistic idea of what could possibly happen in favor of Tina Peters. But now, this whole thing is put into jeopardy because of an assault that took place last night where she was forced to defend herself. So, ladies and gentlemen, pray for Tina Peters. If you'd like to contribute to her political defense fund, then you know where the link is. And of course, we still don't know the final say of the appeals court on Tina Peters' case. We heard the oral arguments on the 14th, but they have not given their opinion on what the...
Yeah, wake people up. Couple more, you guys. One Benny.
Rainbows and smiles.
1 minute.
We'd all be happy.
We'll make this the
She
last
doesn't even
one,
go
guys.
here.
Do you even go to this school?
No, I just have a lot of feelings.
Okay, go home.
I'm sorry I laughed at you that time you got diarrhea at Barnes & Noble.
What's up, guys? Benny. Eric Swalwell is the most cringe member of Congress, and it's not really even a close competition. Let's go through this very quickly. Eric Swalwell crapped his pants
$10 to ask the Ukrainians to help them cheat an election. And the complaint...
The Chinese flag effect, I think, was added there, but the sound is real. This is Eric Swalwell literally ripping ass
Ukrainians
on
to help
camera.
them cheat an election.
There you go. Okay. Then he went ahead and made videos like this one to attack Donald Trump.
Hey, Congressman. Can I help you? What the fuck is up with Trump always chickening out on tariffs?
Okay. He released this. I mean, he made this. This is the guy who's leading. This is the guy who's leading the race for Democrat governor. shoveling a taco in his face.
Anything else? Nope. That's it.
This is their version of doing social media. I can't, and they released it. Of course, people memed it. Eric Swalwell doesn't like memes.
In the hell is
he
this?
argued against memes.
The chairman
in Congress.
tweets, "Protect our ducks and kittens in Ohio," because he goes down some crazy rabbit hole, completely debunked that aliens are eating pets.
It's true. It's true, though. Let's talk about a cat that Eric Swalwell might have eaten his Bang Bang. You know that story. Eric Swalwell and the spy who shagged me. Okay, so Eric Swalwell, his entire congressional career has been just one humiliation after another. And so he's decided to leave Congress. He is definitely leaving Congress. He's out. Eric Swalwell is out. He's running for governor of California. And some of the polls look pretty good for Eric Swalwell. He's still being defeated by two Republicans in the race, Steve Hilton and Sheriff Blanco. But Eric Swalwell is leading a very weak Democrat field for governor of California in spite of all those humiliations. Now, Eric Swalwell is already under mortgage fraud criminal referral for his $1.2 million D.C. home, where Eric Swalwell has been effectively lying to the taxpayers, saying that this is his primary residence in Washington, D.C., even though he's a congressman from California. Let's read. Federal Housing Agency Director Bill Pulte on Wednesday sent a letter to Pam Bondi requesting an investigation of Eric Swalwell based on alleged false and misleading statements that he made about the purchase of his $1.2 million home in Washington, D.C., that he lists as a primary residence. The California Democrat has been able to secure millions of dollars of loans and refinancing based on the primary residence location in D.C., a source familiar said. The designation could constitute mortgage fraud, insurance fraud, and state and local tax fraud, among other charges, the source said. In addition, the Department of Justice criminal referral, they're probing this as a mortgage fraud. Okay. So let's go ahead and check in on Eric Swalwell and his housing troubles, because there are more. Eric Swalwell has been referred to the DOJ, mortgage tax, but this is a little bit of a problem in Eric Swalwell's bid for governor of California. You see, Eric Swalwell has been now referred to the Secretary of State in California for not even living in California. Here we go. Lawsuit to remove Eric Swalwell from the California ballot for governor. California governor's race thrown into chaos as Democrat Eric Swalwell is accused of lying about living in the state. Oh, no. California governor's race thrown into chaos. Democrat candidate Eric Swalwell is accused of lying. What's going on here? Eric Swalwell's the most liberal candidate running in the race. Now he's facing a major hurdle. He actually doesn't live in California. The California Constitution requires gubernatorial candidates to have resided in the Golden State for 5 years. Lawsuit by activist and filmmaker Joel Gilbert claims his home address is a lawyer's office. Gilbert claims the Democrats' real abode is a $1.2 million six-bedroom mansion in Washington, D.C. that he shares with his wife. According to the complaint, the property was listed as the couple's principal residence when they took out a mortgage in April 2022. Swalwell, who's considered one of the favorites to win the gubernatorial race, does not appear to own a property in California, Gilbert claims in a 5-page petition that he filed with the Secretary of State. He accuses the lefty congressman of perjury and urges the Secretary of State to declare him ineligible for governor. Eric Swalwell has no California address, he told the Daily Mail. The filings claim the address that Swalwell listed as a home address is actually that of a law firm in a high-rise building in Sacramento. This doesn't look like a residential location. Here we go. This is Joel Gilbert. This is his home in Washington, D.C. This is the principal residence. So you can see here the documentation. Uh-oh. It's not good for Eric Swalwell. Might be great for the country, though. So he's either guilty of mortgage fraud in Washington, D.C., or he's ineligible to run for California. He can't have it both ways. Swalwell, 45, has represented the San Francisco Bay Area In Congress since 2021, he's been one of President Trump's most vociferous critics. The former prosecutor has been a frequent target of Republican ridicule over his alleged entanglement with a Chinese honey trap spy named Fang Fang. Fang Fang. Fang Fang came to the U.S. as a college student and spent years cultivating a relationship with prominent California politicians. She was working for the Communist Party. She even placed staff in Eric Swalwell's office. Scandal broke in 2020. It cost Swalwell his spot on the House Intelligence Committee. No. California Progressive announced his gubernatorial bid on Jimmy Kimmel Live. First, you get caught banging a Chinese spy. Then you get caught farting on TV. Then you make creepy taco videos for no reason. Then you get caught in mortgage fraud. Then you get caught being ineligible to run for governor of California. Then you announce your gubernatorial campaign on Jimmy Kimmel Live. Can it get any worse? Bombshell court finally hits the brakes on his run for governor. How are you going to get out of this one exactly? What are you going to, like, fake buy a house? Oh, it was my house the whole time. You know, there's filings for this kind of stuff. Swalwell can't run for California governor because he doesn't live there. Oh, no. His home address is his lawyer's office. Yikes. If proven, Swalwell will not be eligible to run. He has to live in the state for 5 years. Unqualified. What do you think, ladies and gentlemen? We just returned from California. It was not good. It was a very, very bad. The state of the state is atrocious. We hope for better things for that state because it is actually our fellow Americans who live there. And they deserve better than this. Anyway, a exciting time.
Okay, that's going to wrap it up for tonight, for Monday night. Got some good videos out tonight. Just want to try not to overdo myself. Yesterday we had a big day with two big shows. So, everyone have a good night. And back at it tomorrow. Another night tomorrow intel. See, and Trump is heading to somewhere Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. I'm not sure. So I think he's out of the country right now. So see what the market does tomorrow. God bless everybody. Love all. Please hit like and go to the description and sub to the backup channels. Okay, Lucy Tim, and I added Ann tonight. Got her a wrench. If she knows how to use it. I don't know if she knows how to be a mod or not, but we'll teach her. Yep, go be everybody. Have a good one. God bless, stay safe, stay strong, keep your faith, and never give up. Signing off. Chico Dude. See you all tomorrow.